Tonight, we are going to slow down together and rest inside some of the oldest stories of the Christian faith. These stories do not explain every mystery. They offer something gentler. They remind you that understanding is not required before peace can enter. You are carried. Grace is still moving. The Lord does not need your sleepless attention to continue His quiet work. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you are listening from. It is quietly comforting to know who else is awake tonight. Somewhere, another person has also reached the end of a long day. Across the sleeping world, in 1,000 dark rooms, others are awake as you are awake, listening as you are listening, carrying their own unfinished days into the same quiet night. You are part of a great and scattered company of the wakeful, each one alone in a room, and yet somehow together in the dark. You are not the only one who could not sleep tonight. Somewhere, another small light is still burning. You are not alone here. This is not a lesson to be learned or a text to be studied. There will be no test in the morning. You are not here to master anything, or to follow an argument, or to arrive at a conclusion. You are here only to be carried gently towards sleep by old and quiet stories. And that asks no knowledge at all, only your willingness to lie still and let them come. You do not need to know anything about the saints, scripture, or theology to listen. You do not need to prepare. You do not need to understand what is being said, or follow it closely, or work to receive it. There is no effort being asked of you at all. The one small thing required is the thing you are already doing, which is simply being here, in the dark, letting the quiet words come. That is the whole of your task tonight, only to be here. You only need to be here, exactly where you are, in the stillness of this hour. These two small sentences carry more relief than they seem to. Nothing to figure out. For a mind that spends its days figuring, solving, deciding, this is a rare permission, and nowhere else to be. For a heart always pulled toward the next place, the next task, the next obligation. This is a rare stillness. Here now, there is only this quiet, and nothing is required of you inside it. There is nothing to figure out. There is nowhere else to be. The questions can remain unanswered tonight. Every life is full of unfinished things. Plans half made, conversations left open, hopes still waiting on an outcome that has not come. The day does not resolve them, and the night will not either, and that is not a failure. It is simply the honest state of a life in motion, always partway through, always carrying something not yet complete, and none of it has to be finished before you sleep. The unfinished plans can remain unfinished. There is an old habit in the mind of standing guard over its worries, as though watching them would keep them from getting worse, as though the very act of turning a problem over and over in the dark were a kind of protection. But the guarding protects nothing. The worries do not improve for being watched, and the mind, exhausted from its long, useless vigil, is not permitted to lay down and sleep. Your mind does not have to guard them. Perhaps one image will stay with you. Perhaps all of them will pass like shadows across a quiet wall. You do not have to gather up the night into a lesson. You do not have to extract a meaning, or fix an insight in your memory, or carry anything away at all. The words can simply pass over you, like water over stones, leaving whatever they leave, taking nothing that matters. Some nights the mind holds an image, some nights it holds nothing, and the nothing is as good as the something, because the point was never the remembering. Both are enough. Nothing is being tested. There is a great kindness in being asked to remember nothing. So much of the day demands that we hold things, track things, keep things in mind. And here, for these few hours, all of that is set down. You are asked to carry nothing forward, to retain nothing, to let each word arrive and depart freely, leaving you lighter, not heavier, emptied gently of the day's long carrying. Nothing must be remembered. Thank you for joining us here at Midnight Chapel. Let us begin now, together, in the quiet. There is a road leaving Jerusalem and bending toward a village called Emmaus. It crosses the dry hills with no hurry. Stones lie pale beneath the evening sky. Small trees lean over the slopes. Their leaves hold the final warmth of day. 2 disciples walk along that road. They have known difficult days. Their minds are full of events they cannot arrange into meaning. Every memory seems to lead toward another question. Every answer seems incomplete. So they walk slowly. Dust gathers around their sandals. The city grows smaller behind them. Ahead, the village remains hidden among the folds of land. They speak as tired people often speak. One begins a thought. The other tries to finish it. Then both fall quiet. They return to the same events from different directions. Still, nothing becomes clear. It is not a lack of effort. They have thought carefully. They have remembered every detail available to them. They have compared what they expected with what actually happened. Yet their understanding has reached its edge. There is a particular weariness in that place. The body may continue walking, while the mind circles one small room. It checks every door. It finds no way through. Many people know that room. It may appear after midnight. A conversation returns with slightly different words. A decision waits without enough information. Something once certain now seems difficult to read. The mind says that one more hour might solve it. One more careful review might reveal the missing piece. Yet the missing piece does not arrive. The room remains the same. On the road to Emmaus, the 2 disciples keep walking. Then another traveler comes near them. He matches their pace without asking them to hurry. His footsteps settle into the rhythm of theirs. They do not recognize him. This matters gently. The answer to their deepest question is already walking beside them. The presence they believe lost is present. The plan they cannot see is unfolding within their own steps. Yet they do not know. The stranger does not rebuke their tired eyes. He does not demand immediate recognition. He simply walks with them. He listens as they tell him the story he already knows. They spoke over each other at times, the way grieving people do, one picking up where the other faltered, both circling the same wound. The stranger did not hurry them or correct them. He simply walked and received their broken account and let them carry it all the way out into the open evening air. There is grace in that listening. Their account is confused and heavy. Some parts are accurate. Other parts are clouded by disappointment. The traveler allows them to speak until the burden becomes lighter. He remains beside them. Their voices rise and fall as they walk. The 2 of them turning the terrible days over and over between them, unable to make the pieces fit. The stranger listens without interrupting, letting them empty out the whole weight of their confusion into the evening air. The road descends into a shallow valley. Evening gathers in the low places first. The 2 travelers walk on, their sandals stirring small clouds of dust from the road. The heat of the day is loosening its grip. A coolness comes up from the valley floor. The olive trees along the way stand silver gray in the fading light, and the hills beyond them soften into shades of violet and blue. It is the quiet hour when the world lets go of the day. A shepherd is leading animals toward a distant enclosure. Smoke rises from a cooking fire near the village. The disciples continue explaining. They tell the stranger what they had hoped. That small phrase carries much of their sadness. Hope had formed a picture. Life did not seem to follow it. Their pain is not only about what happened, it is also about the meaning they assigned to it. They had expected one shape. Providence was making another. Still, the traveler does not leave. He begins to place their story inside a much older story. He speaks of promises carried through generations. He recalls paths that seemed closed before they opened. He shows them that a chapter can feel final while the book continues quietly beyond it. He does not give them a diagram. He gives them companionship. The explanation unfolds slowly, like lamplight entering a room. They understand only enough for the next few steps. That is enough. There is no need for the whole road to become visible. A traveler needs only the ground beneath the present foot. Then the next piece appears. Then another. The disciples still do not recognize him. Yet something within them begins to soften. Their questions have not all disappeared. Their loneliness has. This is often how grace arrives. It does not always remove the mystery. It changes the company we keep inside it. You may not understand everything that has brought you to this night. Some events remain too close. From a short distance, a single stone can fill the entire view. The road beyond it becomes impossible to see. But the road remains. The traveler remains too. The three figures move through the cooling air. Their shadows lengthen and soften. No one rushes. The stranger speaks when words are useful. At other moments, he walks in silence. Silence is not absence here. It is shared space. It is the sound of three sets of footsteps moving toward shelter. The disciples begin to notice the evening. For many miles, their minds had been elsewhere. Now they see the changing color of the hills. They notice the first lamps appearing near Emmaus. They smell bread from a house beside the road. Nothing outside them has become dramatic. The stones are still stones. The village is still small. Yet the world feels inhabited again. Peace often returns in ordinary details. A blanket has weight. A room has walls. Night rests against the window. The next breath arrives without being planned. You do not have to create that breath. You receive it. The travelers reach the place where the road divides. The stranger appears ready to continue. The disciples ask him to remain because evening has come. Their request is simple. Stay with us. He enters the house. Inside, the room is plain. A table stands beneath a low beam. Clay lamps make small circles of gold. The day has narrowed into bread, shelter, and the presence of another person. This is not the grand answer they once imagined. It is something quieter. It is a table at dusk. It is food being received. It is enough light for the room they occupy. The traveler takes the bread. In that familiar movement, their eyes recognize what their minds could not. The companion on the road was the Lord. The one they were seeking had been seeking them through every uncertain mile. Recognition comes late. Presence came earlier. That difference holds deep peace. They were not abandoned until they understood. They were held while they misunderstood. Grace did not wait for their minds to catch up. The same can be true tonight. Understanding may arrive tomorrow. It may arrive slowly over many seasons. Some parts may remain beyond the distance of this life. Yet presence comes now. You are not required to recognize every form it takes. A kindness may look ordinary. A delay may look empty. A closed direction may reveal a gentler road much later. It is not your task to name every hidden purpose. You are allowed to receive the next piece of bread. You are allowed to remain at the table. After the moment of recognition, the gospel scene moves onward, but we may rest inside the room a little longer. The lamps continue burning. The bread remains on the table. Night settles over the road outside. The disciples now see that every uncertain step had been accompanied. Even their confusion became place of meeting. Their questions did not drive the Lord away. Nothing was wasted. Consider the road as it lies beneath the moon. It does not explain where every traveler is going. It simply carries them. Stone after stone receives each foot without demanding a complete map. You can be carried that way. There is a part of your story that may resemble the road before recognition. You have walked beside something you cannot name. You have hoped for clarity and received only enough strength to continue. That strength is not small. It may be grace in its quietest clothing. It may be the presence that does not announce itself. It may be peace arriving before an answer. The mind prefers recognition first, then it promises to rest. The Emmaus road offers another order. We spend so much of our energy chasing the recognition, the moment of understanding, as though everything depended on finally seeing clearly. And the road to Emmaus quietly reorders our priorities. The companionship was there long before the recognition. The nearness did its healing work in the confusion, not only in the clarity. What mattered most came first, and it came while they still could not see. First comes companionship, then comes shelter. The order matters more than we think. We imagine we must first understand our trouble, and only then can we be comforted in it. But the road to Emmaus turns that around. The companion came before the understanding. The presence came first, walking beside them in their confusion, and the understanding, when it came at all, came later, and gently, and almost as an afterthought to the nearness. Understanding may come when the bread is broken, or it may come later. The travelers on the Emmaus road teach us that the companionship comes first, and the understanding comes last, if it comes at all. For most of that walk, they did not know who was beside them, and yet they were not less accompanied for not knowing. The presence was fully present, whether or not they recognized it. Their confusion did not push it away. Their questions did not diminish it. It simply walked with them, patient near, waiting for a recognition that could take its own slow time. So it is with you on your own road tonight. You may not recognize what walks beside you. You may feel entirely alone in your confusion, unable to name the presence, unable to see the companion. And still you are accompanied fully by one who does not require your recognition in order to be near. The walking is shared even when the knowing has not yet come. Either way, you are held. The road does not become holy only at the moment of recognition. We tend to think that the sacred belongs only to the moments of clarity, the high points when everything makes sense and we feel close to God. But the road to Emmaus says otherwise. The whole road was holy, the confused part, the grieving part, the part where they could not see who walked beside them. Sanctity was not waiting at the destination. It filled every dusty step, including the ones taken in complete bewilderment. It was holy when they were confused. It was holy when they repeated their questions. It was holy when sunset touched the stones and they could not see what walked beside them. And this is a great comfort for the confused heart. Your road does not become sacred only at the moment you finally understand it. It is sacred now, in the confusion, in the repeated questions, in the long stretch, where you cannot see what walks beside you. The presence does not wait for your recognition. It is already there, already walking, already turning your ordinary dusty road into holy ground. Your unfinished road can hold grace too. You do not need to return to every conversation tonight. You do not need to review each turning. The traveler has not lost the path, simply because you cannot see it. Let the hills grow dim. Let the small lamps appear. Let the road pass beyond the reach of thought. The Lord knows the way to Emmaus. He knows the way through every hidden valley. He can walk without your instructions. This is not surrender to emptiness. It is rest inside faithful company. It is permission to stop solving what cannot be solved before morning. The two disciples sit at the table. Their journey has been gathered into one quiet room. They do not possess the whole plan. They have received enough. You may receive enough too. There is bread for this moment. There is shelter for this night. There is a presence closer than recognition. You are held. Let us rest inside another story. Consider now another image from those old pages. The Gospels hold a smaller image that says the same thing. A farmer scatters seed across prepared ground. Then he returns home. Night comes and the farmer sleeps. While he sleeps, the seed begins its hidden work. There is no audience beneath the soil. No lamp shines there. The seed does not explain its progress. It opens in darkness and sends one small root downward. The farmer cannot see this. He has done the work belonging to that day. His hands have pressed the seed into the earth. His feet have crossed the field many times. Now the tools rest beside the wall. It is evening. He washes the soil from his hands in a shallow basin. Water becomes cloudy around his fingers. He eats a simple meal near the window. Beyond the glass, the field is already disappearing into night. The farmer has known many seasons. Still, waiting does not always come easily. Each field requires trust before it offers evidence. He knows where the seed lies. He can picture every furrow, yet he cannot command what happens next. Warmth, moisture, earth, and life must meet beyond his reach. That night, he steps outside once more. The field seems motionless. Nothing shows above the ground. The dark soil keeps every secret. For a moment, the farmer considers carrying a lantern into the rows. He could kneel and move the earth aside. He could search for proof that the seed has begun. But proof would cost something. Opening the soil would disturb the very work he wants to confirm. His need to know could injure what patience is protecting. So he stays near the doorway. The field offers no explanation. It offers silence. This silence is not empty. A seed is loosening beneath it. A root is finding its direction. The smallest movement has already begun. The farmer cannot notice any of this. Yet it continues. He closes the door and prepares for bed. His room is cool. A folded blanket lies across the mattress. The ordinary objects of evening wait without urgency. He lies down. The field does not stop because his eyes close. The root does not wait for his supervision. Life has been given a wisdom the farmer does not need to manage. He sleeps and the seed grows. This is one of the gentlest images in the gospel. The kingdom is compared with a work that continues while the worker rests. Growth is not presented as anxious watching. It is received as mystery. Morning comes softly. Light touches the table first, then it reaches the basin and the tools beside the wall. The morning is cool and gray. Mist lies low over the rows. Birds are beginning their first calls from the hedgerows, and the light comes slowly, without drama, spreading across the quiet land the way it does every ordinary morning. The farmer wakes and returns to the field. Nothing is visible yet. He walks between the rows. The soil looks almost exactly as it looked yesterday. He crouches for a moment and touches the earth with his fingers. It is cool and dark and gives away nothing. There is no green thread pushing up, no visible sign that anything is happening at all. To the eye, the field is simply waiting, patient and closed, keeping its secret beneath the surface. A bird crosses overhead. Wind moves along the edge of the grass. The morning is ordinary in every way and gives no hint of the change happening below. The farmer looks at the unbroken surface of the field and sees nothing new. Yet under his very feet, in the cool dark of the soil, the seed is doing the quiet work it was made for, unseen, unhurried, indifferent to whether anyone is watching it or not. The farmer must live without visible confirmation. He attends to other things. He repairs a wooden handle. He carries water. He checks a gate near the lower pasture. The seed continues without reporting to him. Another evening arrives. Again he sleeps. Beneath the ground, the root grows longer. A pale shoot turns upward through the soil. It does not hurry. It follows a direction carried within its own small life. There is grace in this hiddenness. The seed is protected from wind before it can bear the wind. It is covered before it is ready for light. What looks like burial is also shelter. The farmer does not have to understand every stage. He does not need to know the hour when the shell opens. He is asked only to honor the hidden work by leaving it hidden. Many plans begin like that seed. A kind word disappears into another person's heart. A patient choice seems to produce no result. A season ends before its meaning becomes visible. The mind wants green leaves immediately. It wants the field to justify the sowing. It wants a sign before agreeing to rest. The earth declines that bargain. It is not refusing the farmer. It is forming the seed. There may be a field within your life that looks unchanged tonight. Something was placed there with hope. Nothing has risen where you can see it. You are not required to dig. The work beneath the surface belongs to God. The darkness does not prevent him from seeing. The silence does not prevent him from acting. You may rest. The farmer learns this through repetition. He wakes, he works, he sleeps. Each day holds a small duty. Each night releases that duty. That is the gentle rhythm the farmer lives by, and it is a rhythm the anxious heart forgets. The day is for the work of the hands. The night is for the letting go of it. He does not carry the daylight duties into the dark. When evening comes, he sets them down as naturally as he sets down his tools, and he lets the night be the night, empty of labor, made for rest. There is no single dramatic moment. Trust enters through ordinary evenings. It becomes the habit of closing the door while the field remains unfinished. Days pass across the valley. Some are warm, some carry low clouds. Rain settles into the furrows and vanishes. Then one morning, the farmer notices a line of green. It is so fine that he almost mistakes it for light on the soil. He bends closer. The seed has risen. It did not rise because he worried. This is worth sitting with. All his anxious attention had added nothing to the growing. The seed did not care whether he lay awake or slept soundly. It followed its own hidden law, in its own hidden time, indifferent to his fear, and unhurried by his hope. His worry had been, from the beginning, entirely beside the point. The field grew by grace, not by his vigilance. It did not rise, because he correctly imagined every hidden stage. It rose because life was working in the place he could not enter. The farmer smiles, then continues along the row. He knows the field is not finished. The first leaf is not the harvest. The farmer's whole life is an education in patience. He cannot make the seed hurry. He cannot open the soil and command the root to grow faster. He can only do his small part, the sowing and the tending, and then wait through days that show him nothing, for a harvest that comes on its own schedule and not on his. Season after season, the land teaches him the same lesson, that the most important work is the work he cannot do or see or rush. And it is a lesson the anxious mind must learn again every night. So much of what matters in our lives is growing in the dark, on its own schedule, hidden from our watching. We cannot dig it up to check on it. We cannot hurry it by worrying. We can only do our small part in the daylight, and then lie down in the dark and trust the hidden work to the one in whose keeping the seed is growing. And the farmer is content with that. He does not need the harvest tonight. He does not need the field to prove itself before he can sleep. He has learned over a lifetime of seasons that the field keeps its own counsel, that the growing cannot be rushed or watched into being, that his part is small and the earth's part is large. And so he sleeps and lets the large part happen without him. More hidden work remains. Yet he has seen enough. That evening, he can still sleep. The green shoots do not require his watch through the night. Rain can fall without his permission. Roots can deepen without his advice. Peace does not come from controlling the field. It comes from knowing his place within it. He is the sower. He is not the source of life. This distinction is kind. It removes a weight no human shoulders were made to carry. The farmer can be faithful without becoming all-powerful. You can be faithful that way too. There is something deeply restful about a limit accepted without shame. The day has an ending. The hand has a reach. The mind has a horizon beyond which it cannot see. God is not limited by that horizon. The farmer may misunderstand the weather. He may not know why one week is cooler than another. He may find that some rows grow differently. The field does not demand complete knowledge from him. It asks for presence today. Then it allows sleep. The season continues. The plants become taller. Leaves spread over the soil that once looked empty. The field moves in the afternoon wind like a single green cloth. The farmer stands at its edge. He remembers the first silent night. Nothing appeared to be happening then. Yet that night belonged to the harvest as surely as this morning does. Hidden days are still part of the plan. Unanswered days are too. If tonight feels like bare soil, it does not mean grace is absent. If you cannot notice progress, it does not mean progress has stopped. The deepest roots are never visible from above. You do not have to measure them. Imagine the field beneath a quiet moon. Every plant is holding its life without sound. The farmer's house has one dark window. He is asleep. Nothing is neglected. The God who designed the seed knows how to open it. The God who gives the field its seasons does not forget where each small beginning rests. You are also known there. Your life contains work you can do and work you cannot do. Wisdom does not always mean learning how to do more. Sometimes it means recognizing what continues without you. The heart keeps beating during sleep. The earth turns without being reminded. Dawn travels toward the window while the room remains dark. Grace moves quietly. You may have carried a question into bed as though it were a lantern. You may have raised it above every memory, searching for the place where certainty was hidden. The lantern can be lowered now. Some answers grow like plants. Pulling them upward makes them smaller, not faster. They require a darkness that patience alone can protect. Let the soil remain closed. The farmer does not call this failure. He calls it a field. He knows that emptiness and preparation can look alike for a while. That knowledge gives peace. The plants eventually form heads of grain. Their color changes slowly beneath the sun. The farmer can see the season moving toward completion, though even now he cannot control its exact hour. He receives what comes. There is grace in receiving. It does not demand that you understand the machinery of every gift. Bread can nourish someone who does not know how each grain opened beneath the earth. The harvest is gathered. Some grain is stored, some is ground, some becomes bread on the farmer's table, and some seed is kept for another field. The pattern begins again. Seed enters darkness. The earth closes over it. Evening comes. The farmer sleeps. He has not become careless. He has become trusting. He knows that watching and loving are not the same thing. God can love what you cannot watch. God can carry what you cannot follow into tomorrow. His plan does not become fragile when your attention softens. It does not depend upon your remaining awake. This is the peace of the seed. It is held before it is visible. It is guided without understanding its path. It is changed in a darkness that becomes shelter. You may share that peace. There is nothing to uncover tonight. There is nothing to pull from the earth. The field is quiet, and quiet does not mean empty. Let the tools rest beside the wall. Let the water settle in the basin. Let the farmer's window become dark. The seed is held, and you are held. This brings us to a small story about a saint who understood sleep differently. Let us stay a little longer among these quiet lives. There is a tender memory associated with Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. She was a young Carmelite nun who desired to love God through small and ordinary things. Her path was not built from grand achievements. She did not do large things. She had no great platform, no famous deeds, no wide influence in her short life. She swept floors and endured small irritations and offered up the tiny frustrations of an ordinary hidden existence. And she believed, with a conviction that has outlasted many louder lives, that these small things done with love were the whole of what was asked, not greatness, faithfulness in the little. It was made from trust. It is said that Thérèse sometimes fell asleep during prayer. The last murmurs of the other sisters would fade. The candlelight would soften against the walls. A deep hush would settle over the small room, the kind of hush that gathers in places where people have prayed for a very long time. The chapel would become quiet around her. The chapel was dim and cool, lit by a few candles, and the long day of small duties had emptied her strength. Kneeling there in the quiet, with the murmured prayers rising softly around her, her eyes grew heavy and her head bowed, and sleep came to claim her gently, right there in the presence she had come to seek. The other sisters remained upright, while her tired body surrendered to sleep. She knew this might appear imperfect, yet she found comfort in a simple image. A loving parent does not stop loving a child who has fallen asleep. If anything, the love grows softer and more tender in that hour. The parent stands in the doorway of the darkened room and simply watches the small sleeping shape, the slow rise and fall of the little chest, and feels a love that asks for nothing in return, that is not diminished in the least by the child's complete unawareness of it. The sleeping child is still held. Let us imagine one evening in the convent at Lisieux. The stone passages have released the warmth of day. Small lamps cast gentle light against the walls. The sisters enter the chapel in silence. Thérèse takes her familiar place. Her day has contained many small duties. None would seem important to someone looking for a remarkable story. She has folded cloth. She has walked the corridor. She has answered another sister with patience. She has carried ordinary weariness into prayer. The chapel is still. Before her, the sanctuary lamp burns with a steady flame. It does not ask who is watching. It simply gives its small light through the night. Thérèse tries to remain attentive. A thought arrives, then disappears. Another thought wanders toward the work of tomorrow. She gently returns. Soon her eyes become heavy. There can be anxiety in such a moment. A person may believe love must always feel alert. The mind may treat tiredness as a failure of devotion. But tiredness is not rejection. It is the honest language of a human body at the end of day. Thérèse rests within that truth. Her head lowers slightly. The words she intended to hold become soft and indistinct. The silence receives her without complaint. Then she sleeps. Nothing in the chapel is damaged by this. The lamp continues burning. The stone floor remains beneath her. The Lord does not withdraw because her attention has faded. Grace remains. The sisters around her continue their prayer. Some may be peaceful, some may also be distracted. Each carries an unseen interior life. No one understands every movement within another heart. God does not require that understanding. The love offered to Thérèse is not payment for perfect concentration. It is not a fragile reward that disappears when the body reaches its limit. It has the steadiness of a parent beside a sleeping child. A parent may enter a dark room after the child has fallen asleep. The blanket is gathered near one small hand. A toy lies on the floor. The child knows nothing of the quiet care taking place. The parent lifts the blanket. The child does not assist, and the child will never know, in the morning, that the blanket was arranged. It will simply wake warm and think nothing of it, and go on with its small day, carried all night by a care it never noticed and never thanked. This is how much love happens in the world, quietly, unwitnessed, asking for no acknowledgement, simply covering what it loves while the loved one sleeps, unaware. The child does not understand. Still, the blanket is drawn gently across those small shoulders. Love works without being witnessed. This was close to the trust at the heart of Thérèse's little way. She did not need to become large enough to control the whole journey. She could remain small enough to be carried. There is peace in smallness. The world tells us to grow large, to become the kind of person who has everything under control, who anticipates every danger and masters every outcome. And that largeness is exhausting, and it is a lie, because no one is ever actually that large. Thérèse chose the opposite. She chose to be small enough to be carried, and in that smallness she found a peace the anxious and the mighty never find. The world often teaches another lesson. It says, safety belongs to the person who anticipates every outcome. This is one of the great lies the tired mind believes, that we must comprehend our situation before we are permitted to lay it down. That sleep is a reward reserved for those who have thought everything through. And so we lie awake, trying to earn our sleep by understanding, and the understanding will not come, and the sleep is kept hostage to it. But it was never true. Sleep is a gift for the uncomprehending as much as anyone. It says, understanding makes us worthy of rest. The chapel teaches more quietly. Rest can be received before understanding. Love can remain when attention disappears. You are not held by the strength of your own focus. You are held by a faithfulness greater than your focus. Thérèse wakes after a little while. Perhaps the chapel looks unchanged. The lamp has burned through the moments she cannot remember. She has missed nothing necessary. This does not make her careless. It makes her free to begin again without fear. She can return to the present moment because love never left it. Returning is enough. The next morning, convent life continues. A bell marks the beginning of another ordinary day. Doors open. Footsteps pass through the corridor. Bread is placed upon a table. Thérèse meets the day through small things. A task is completed without display. A difficult moment is met gently. A hidden kindness is offered where no one may notice it. These small acts do not reveal the whole plan. They are the next available step. That is enough for her little way. She does not climb toward God by mastering every mystery. She allows herself to be lifted through trust. A child at the foot of a great staircase does not despair at the height of the steps. The child simply lifts its arms and waits to be carried, and trusts that the climbing is not its to do alone. There is no shame in the lifted arms. There is only trust. The plain creaturely trust of a small one who knows it will be carried up what it cannot climb. Thérèse built her whole path on those lifted arms. She did not try to become strong enough to climb the great heights of holiness by her own effort. She stayed small and lifted her arms and let herself be carried up the steps that were too high for her. The distance she could not cross by striving was crossed for her by a love that stooped to lift her. And this is the whole of her little way, gathered into one image. She did not become great. She did not master the heights. She simply stayed small and let herself be lifted and trusted that the distance she could not cross would be crossed for her. It is perhaps the gentlest path to God ever described, and it asks the least, and it is open to the most tired and ordinary heart. The distance is crossed by grace. Imagine a child standing at the bottom of a staircase. The steps are too high for small legs. The child could study each one and feel discouraged. Then a parent bends down. The child reaches upward. The journey changes. What could not be climbed alone can be received in loving arms. The child does not need to understand the parent's strength. The child only knows the nearness of the arms. Thérèse returned often to that kind of confidence. It did not answer every question. This is a subtler mercy than we usually hope for. We ask for our questions to be answered, and often they are not. But sometimes something better happens. The questions remain, and yet they weigh less. They stop pressing so hard. They loosen their grip on the throat. Carried by someone else, shared with a presence larger than ourselves, the same unanswered questions become strangely light. It changed what the questions weighed. There is a reason we long to share our heaviest questions with someone. Spoken aloud to a trusted heart, the same worry that crushed us in solitude becomes, somehow, bearable. It is not that the other person answers it. Often they cannot. It is that the weight is now shared, carried between two instead of one, and the sharing itself lightens it more than any answer could. Some questions become lighter when carried by two. There is a difference between a question that torments and a question that simply waits. The tormenting question demands its answer now and grows louder the longer it is denied. The waiting question has laid itself down, content to remain open, trusting that the answer will come in its time, or that the open question is itself somehow safe. The same uncertainty can be either one, depending only on whether we clutch it or entrust it. Some become quiet when kept by God. Perhaps you have believed that sleep must wait until your mind has completed its work. You may feel responsible for maintaining attention over every uncertain thing, but sleep is not abandonment. It can be an act of creaturely trust. There is an old fear buried in our sleeplessness, the fear that if we stop paying attention, something will go wrong that our attention could have prevented. As if the world were bound together by our watching, as if our lying awake were what kept the people we love safe. Thérèse saw through that fear. She knew the world does not run on her vigilance. It runs on a care far greater, and her sleeping takes nothing from it. To fall asleep, then, is a small act of faith. It is the body's way of saying that the world is in better hands than ours, that we may lay down our watching without disaster, that the night will keep its course whether or not we supervise it. Every night you sleep, you rehearse this trust. You let the world continue without you, and you wake to find it did. It allows the world to continue without your management. The sanctuary lamp understands this in its own silent way. It burns while the convent sleeps. Its flame remains small. It does not fill every shadow. It gives enough light. No sister must sit beside it through every hour. The chapel is not empty because human eyes are closed. The presence signified there does not depend upon an audience. Peace can live in an unwatched room. Thérèse's comfort also releases the need to perform perfectly before God. A tired child is not a disappointing child. Weariness does not remove belonging. You belong while tired. You belong while uncertain. You belong when thoughts wander and words become difficult to hold. Grace is not measuring the sharpness of your attention tonight. There is nothing to prove. The little saint's insight does not ask us to imitate a special feeling. It offers permission. The body may become heavy. The story may blur. The next paragraph may pass without being remembered. Nothing has gone wrong. The voice can continue while you drift toward sleep. The chapel can remain around you in imagination. The small lamp can keep its place. You may be the child beneath the blanket. The parent does not wake the child to explain how the blanket was arranged. Love does not need recognition before it becomes real. It simply covers. There is a gentleness in this that the mind may resist. The mind wants to contribute something. The mind is uncomfortable with a gift. It wants to contribute, to deserve, to have some hand in what it receives, so that the receiving feels earned and therefore safe. A pure gift given for nothing, received without merit, unsettles it. And yet the deepest things are always exactly that. Given freely, received without earning. The mind's discomfort does not change the nature of the gift. It only delays the simple opening of the hand. It wants to earn the peace it receives. Yet a sleeping child contributes only trust. Even that trust is mostly the absence of resistance. We are so trained to equate stillness with idleness, doing nothing with being worthless, that we can hardly let ourselves stop without a low hum of unease. But the sleeping child feels no such unease. It does not apologize for resting. It does not feel it must justify its stillness with some accomplishment. It simply belongs and is loved and sleeps without a single thought that it must earn the right to. The child rests. This is not laziness. It is belonging without performance. What a strange and healing phrase that is. So much of waking life feels like performance, like earning our place through what we accomplish and understand and control. But the sleeping child earns nothing and performs nothing and belongs completely. Its place is not won. Its place is simply given by love and held for it, whether it is awake or asleep, useful or still. The body knows things the mind forgets. It knows how to breathe without being told. It knows how to mend a wound without a single conscious instruction. And it knows, underneath all our anxious thinking, how to be at ease, how to lie down and trust the night, if only the mind will grow quiet enough to let it. The sleeping child trusts with its whole body, and the body's trust is older and wiser than the mind's endless talk. It is the knowledge carried by the body when the mind has stopped speaking. Thérèse lived inside a community shaped by repeated hours. There is a deep comfort in a life shaped by returning rhythms, the bell that calls at the same hour, the prayer that comes at the same time, the steady turning of morning into evening into night, each arriving when it should, each asking only what it always asks. In such a rhythm, the anxious mind can finally loosen, because it does not have to decide anything. It only has to follow the returning hours, trusting each to bring what it brings. Morning returned, evening returned, work gave way to prayer, prayer gave way to sleep. The pattern carried her. She did not need every day to feel meaningful. A small day could still belong to a holy life. A hidden day could still fit within God's plan. That is grace. There may be days in your own life that seem disconnected from any larger design. They contain errands, unfinished tasks, and thoughts that return without resolution. No day is outside the care of God. The smallest piece can be held before its purpose is visible. Thérèse trusted that love could gather small things into a meaning she did not need to supervise. You can let tonight be small. It does not have to become the night when everything is understood. It can simply be the night when you stop asking understanding to protect you. There is another protection. The walls remain around the room. The bed receives the body's weight. Darkness softens the edges of familiar objects. The next breath is already arriving. You do not have to guide it. Think once more of the chapel at Lisieux. The young sister sits quietly among the others. Her eyes close. The lamp continues to burn. God's plan does not pause. Outside, the town settles into sleep. Roofs grow pale beneath the moon. A road passes the convent wall and continues beyond sight. Inside, a tired person is loved. Nothing more is needed. Thérèse does not awaken with complete knowledge. She awakens with the same small path before her. She will walk it one ordinary step at a time. That path is enough. If sleep comes before the ending of this story, it will not interrupt anything essential. You do not have to hear every word to remain within its peace. You are already held. The blanket is already near. The lamp is already burning. Grace has remained through every moment you could not watch. Rest does not need permission from understanding. Rest is allowed now. Consider now a different image inside a village chapel with an unfinished window. There is one more story to keep us company tonight. There is a story sometimes told about an old sacristan named Elias. He cared for a chapel near the edge of a quiet village. The chapel was small, with worn stone steps and a narrow tower, and it stood a little apart from the houses, near the edge of the quiet fields. He would climb the worn stone steps in the dark, his key cold in his hand, and let himself into the sleeping chapel. He would light the first candles. He would open the shutters to let in the coming day. It was the same each morning, a slow and familiar liturgy of small tasks, done in the hush before the village woke. Elias arrived before dawn each morning, when the village was still asleep and the sky held only the first faint gray of the coming day. He opened the wooden doors and walked through the cool nave. His keys made the faintest sound against his coat. He knew every corner. He knew which floorboard moved beneath a careful foot. He knew where rain darkened the outer wall. He knew how the morning light traveled from one pillar to another. For many years, one window near the sanctuary had remained unfinished. It had stood that way longer than anyone in the village could remember. The colored pieces that were finished caught the morning light and threw soft blues and golds across the stone floor. But the lower half, boarded over, kept its silence, and the whole image waited, half made, for hands that never seemed to come. Its upper half contained colored glass. Its lower half was covered by plain boards. The completed pieces suggested a larger image. There was blue like evening sky. There was brown like earth. There were small fields of gold whose purpose Elias could not understand. No one in the village remembered the full design. The first craftsman had grown old before completing it. His drawings were believed lost. So the window waited. Elias often stood before it after finishing his morning work. He tried to imagine what the scattered colors were meant to become. Some days he saw the beginning of a landscape. Other days he thought he saw a robe. Nothing quite joined together. The unfinished window troubled him more than he admitted. Everything else in the chapel had a clear purpose. Candles gave light. Benches received tired bodies. The door opened and closed. But the window remained a question. Each afternoon, sunlight passed through the colored pieces and placed broken shapes upon the floor. A blue patch rested near the aisle. A narrow band of gold touched the wall. The light was beautiful, but incomplete. Elias believed completion would bring peace. Once he could see the intended image, every strange piece would make sense. Until then, the window felt like a sentence ending before its final word. Years passed that way. Then a glassworker came to the village. She was a quiet woman named Mara, who traveled with a wooden case of tools. She had repaired windows in churches across the valley. The parish asked her to examine the unfinished work. Mara spent a long morning on a ladder near the sanctuary. She held each piece toward the light. She studied the old lead lines and touched the edges carefully. Elias watched from below. At last, Mara climbed down. She said the original drawing could be recovered from the window itself. The direction of every line still carried the intention of the first craftsman. Elias felt hope awaken. He asked what the picture would become. Mara smiled gently and said she could not yet see the whole image. She would need to work one section at a time. That answer disappointed him. He had waited many years. He wanted the mystery opened immediately. Yet Mara did not pretend to know what the glass had not revealed. She returned the next morning. Her work began slowly. She removed one weathered board and measured the empty space behind it. Then she selected a piece of gray glass from her case. Elias looked at the gray piece. It seemed dull beside the blues and golds. He wondered how such a color could complete anything beautiful. Mara fitted it into place. The gray glass made no sense. From the bottom of the ladder, Elias saw only a dim shape interrupting the light. He tried to remain silent, but concern followed him through the day. When evening came, he asked whether the glass might be wrong. Mara listened. Then she invited him to wait until more pieces surrounded it. One piece cannot explain a window. Elias understood the words. Still, he did not feel their peace. He had spent years looking at separate pieces, and separation had become the habit of his mind. That night, he closed the chapel doors. The sanctuary lamp remained behind him, holding its small red glow. The unfinished window became dark. Elias walked home beneath a quiet sky. He carried the gray piece in his thoughts. It seemed like an error no one else had noticed. He slept lightly. Before dawn, he returned to the chapel. Mara had not yet arrived. Elias stood beneath the window and looked upward. The gray glass was nearly invisible without sunlight. It waited among the other pieces. It offered no defense of its place. There is a humility in unfinished work. It cannot prove what it will become. It must endure being misunderstood. Elias lit the lamps and prepared the chapel. He straightened a cloth. He placed a book upon its stand. Ordinary duties carried him toward morning. Then Mara arrived. She added a piece of pale green beneath the gray. Later, she fitted a narrow line of amber beside it. Each addition changed the relationship among the others. Still, the image remained hidden. Elias began asking fewer questions. He noticed that Mara never rushed to force a piece into place. When an edge did not fit, she returned it to the table. She trusted the design enough to work slowly. At midday, they ate bread beneath the shade of the tower. Elias asked how she could continue without seeing the complete picture. Mara said that the old lines gave enough direction for the next piece. She did not need tomorrow's section to shape today's glass. The next piece was enough. Elias looked toward the chapel wall. From outside, the colored glass appeared dark. Its light could be seen only from within. This seemed important. Many things look different according to where a person stands. A delay can look empty from one side and protective from another. A closed path can look cruel until another road becomes visible. Distance changes the image. Time changes it too. The work continued for several weeks. Mara came each morning. Some days she placed only one piece. Some days she removed a piece installed earlier and shaped it again. Elias learned to sweep beneath the ladder without trying to understand everything above it. He completed the work entrusted to him. Mara completed hers. The chapel held them both. Villagers occasionally entered and studied the window. Each person offered a different guess. One saw a tree, another saw a road. A child said the gold pieces looked like wheat. No guess contained the whole. Mara listened kindly and returned to her work. She did not build the window according to the latest opinion. She followed the deeper pattern already present in its lines. Elias found peace in that. The design did not change whenever someone misunderstood it. It remained steady beneath every incomplete view. God's plan can hold that steadiness. Our interpretation may change from morning to evening. What appears meaningless today may later become a necessary shadow. The design does not tremble. One rainy afternoon, the chapel became very dim. Mara could not match the colors without clear daylight. She covered her work and closed the tool case. Elias felt impatient. The window had waited long enough. A lost afternoon seemed difficult to accept. Mara touched the wooden case. She said some work could not be done faithfully in poor light. Waiting was also part of the craft, so they waited. Rain moved softly against the roof. Water followed the gutters and gathered in the courtyard. The unfinished window held only the gray color of the sky. Elias made tea in a small room behind the chapel. He and Mara sat at a plain table. They spoke about ordinary things. Nothing advanced that afternoon, yet nothing was lost. Outside, the rain fell steadily against the old glass and ran in long threads down the finished panes. Inside, the chapel was dim and cool and quiet. The unfinished window waited under its boards, patient as it had been for years, in no hurry at all, keeping its half-made image safe in the shadowed corner. Even in the pause, nothing was lost. The colors waited under the boards, exactly as they had been left. The lead lines kept their shape. The half-made image kept its silence, patient, undisturbed, whole in its incompleteness, ready for the hands that would one day return to finish what an old craftsman had begun so long before. The pieces remained safe beneath their covering. The lead lines did not forget their direction. Tomorrow's light was already traveling toward them through the turning earth. Even in the deepest part of that night, when the work sat covered and unfinished, and the chapel stood dark, the dawn was already on its way. It could not be seen. It could not be hurried. But it was coming, as surely as the earth turns, bearing the light that would let the work go on. The darkness was not the end of anything. It was only the pause before the returning light. Rest protected the work. When morning came, the rain had passed. Sunlight entered the chapel with unusual clarity. Mara uncovered the glass and resumed. The colors looked different after rain. Blue became deeper. Gold seemed warmer. Even the gray piece held a quiet silver light. Elias began to see a shape. The gray glass formed part of a shadow beneath a folded garment. Without that shadow, the surrounding colors would have appeared flat. The piece he feared was giving depth to the image. It had never been an error. It had only been seen too closely and too soon. Elias stood at the far end of the nave. From there, the separate fragments began to gather. A figure was emerging beside a country road. Another figure walked near him. The window was becoming Emmaus. Elias remembered the travelers who did not recognize their companion. He noticed how the gray shadow rested near their feet. It grounded them upon the road. The darkest piece helped reveal the way. There was grace in the discovery, but Mara's work was not finished. Several boards still covered the lowest section. Elias now felt less need to hurry her. He had seen enough. Each morning he opened the doors. Each evening he closed them. The window changed by small degrees between those faithful movements. Sometimes Elias forgot to inspect it. That forgetting was a kind of freedom. The work could continue without occupying every thought. He could notice the candle wax that needed clearing. He could greet an elderly visitor. He could sit quietly after the chapel emptied. His life became larger than the question. Peace had not arrived, because the answer was complete. It arrived when Elias trusted the hands shaping what he could not yet see. This is often enough. There may be a gray piece within your story. It may be a waiting season, an unanswered request, or a direction that changed unexpectedly. Seen alone, it offers no explanation. You do not have to defend it. You do not have to call it beautiful before you can rest. You may simply allow that one piece cannot explain a window. The view is still close. The work is still moving. Mara finally reached the last wooden board. Behind it, she found a small mark carved into the stone. It matched a mark near the window's upper edge. The first craftsman had left a line between them. That line revealed the final direction of the road. What appeared lost had remained inside the structure all along. The plan was not absent. It was waiting to be read by patient hands. Mara shaped the final pieces across several quiet mornings. She used soft colors near the bottom, where the road entered the scene. Nothing called attention to itself. Every piece served the whole. On the final day, she placed a small section of clear glass near the horizon. Through it, the actual sky beyond the chapel became part of the picture. The window was complete, yet it remained open to living light. Clouds changed its mood. Evening softened its colors. Morning renewed them. Completion was not stillness. Elias stood at the doorway and looked across the full length of the chapel. The image held two travelers and the quiet companion between them. Fields rested on either side of the road. The gold pieces became distant lamps. The blue pieces became evening. The gray piece became the shadow beneath the Lord's robe. It made his presence visible by giving the light a place to rest. Elias felt no triumph. He felt relief. How different that made the years look, in the end. What Elias had seen as a long failure, a thing shamefully left undone, turned out to have been a long faithfulness, a patient keeping, a waiting that protected the work until its hour came. The incompleteness had not been a wound in the story. It had been part of the story, necessary, purposeful, quietly serving an end no one could see while it lasted. The years of incompletion had not been outside the story of the window. This was the thing that moved old Elias most deeply. All that long time, when the window stood half-finished, boarded and waiting, had not been wasted time, had not been a failure or an accident. It had been part of the making. The waiting itself had preserved the design until the hands that could complete it finally came. The delay had been, all along, a kind of keeping. Old Elias had spent years half troubled by that unfinished window. It had seemed to him a kind of failure, a thing left undone, an incompleteness in the house he cared for. And now, watching the young craftswoman fit the final pieces, he understood that the long incompleteness had been its own kind of faithfulness. The window had waited, and the waiting had kept it safe, and the delay he had grieved was the very thing that brought it whole to this moment. How many things we grieve as incomplete may be, in truth, simply unfinished, waiting for hands that have not yet come. The half-made things in our own lives, the plans that stalled, the hopes that seem abandoned, may not be failures at all. They may be waiting. They may be kept, in their incompleteness, for a completion we cannot yet see, arriving in a time that is not ours to set. They had preserved it until the right hands arrived. Waiting had belonged to the design. That evening, the village gathered briefly to see the finished work. People stood in silence. Some noticed the figures. Some noticed only the colors touching the floor. Both ways of seeing were enough. When everyone had gone, Elias remained. He swept the nave as he had done for years. The same broom moved across the same stones. Much had changed. Much remained ordinary. He extinguished the candles one by one. The sanctuary lamp stayed lit. Outside, night covered the window, and its image disappeared from human sight. The window remained complete in darkness. It did not need to be visible every hour to remain whole. The design was still present when no color could be seen. This gave Elias a final peace. He had believed understanding was the light that held the pieces together. Now he knew they remained joined even when the chapel was dark. The design held them. You may rest inside that image tonight. Your life does not become fragmented when you cannot see how its pieces meet. Darkness changes your view. It does not loosen the hands of God. The window is still held. The road is still there. The seed is still growing. The sleeping child is still loved. These are not 4 different lessons. They are 4 views of one gentle truth. The plan can continue without becoming visible. Presence can remain without being recognized. You do not need to understand everything. The old sacristan locks the chapel doors. His keys rest quietly in his pocket. He crosses the village square beneath the evening sky. He no longer carries the window home. It remains where it belongs, held within stone, lead, glass, and light. The craftsman's work does not need the sacristan's worry. Your unfinished questions can remain in faithful hands too. There is no need to complete the picture tonight. There is no need to decide what every color means. The distance required for understanding may come in its own season. For now, there is rest. Elias reaches his small house. He places the keys on a wooden table. He closes the curtains and prepares for sleep. Across the square, the sanctuary lamp continues burning. No one watches it. The completed window stands in darkness. Nothing is lost. Everything necessary is held. The village becomes quiet. The road beyond it fades among the hills. Fields rest beneath the same patient night. Nothing in all that wide, dark country is anxious now. The seed sleeps in the soil. The finished window stands quiet in the sanctuary. The small lamp keeps its steady watch. And over all of it, the night spreads its patient dark, asking nothing, hurrying nothing, holding the whole sleeping land in a stillness that does not need to understand itself to be at peace. Somewhere below the earth, a seed opens. Somewhere, a tired child sleeps beneath a blanket. Somewhere, 2 travelers discover that they were never walking alone. Grace continues. You are not responsible for keeping it awake. You are not responsible for holding every piece in place. The plan belongs to hands more patient than yours. Let those hands hold it. Let the gray piece wait within the window. Let the hidden root move through the soil. Let the unknown companion keep pace along the road. You may become quiet. You may rest before the picture is complete. You are held within it. Night does not erase the design entrusted to darkness. It only covers the pieces gently until another light reveals what patient hands have already joined together. Before the night closes, remain for one quiet moment inside the chapel after Elias has gone home. When the doors are locked and every familiar object has disappeared into shadow, the benches stand in patient rows, receiving no one, while the stone beneath them slowly releases the warmth gathered during the day. Near the sanctuary, the small lamp continues its steady work. although there are no human eyes nearby to measure the flame. Beyond it, the completed window looks almost ordinary in darkness because blue, gold, amber, and gray have all become the same deep color. Nothing in the window is missing, even though nothing can presently be understood by sight. The travelers remain within the glass, the road continues beneath their feet, and the hidden companion still keeps his place beside them. Morning is not creating that image from nothing, because morning will only reveal what the darkness has faithfully carried. In the same way, tomorrow does not have to invent a purpose for this night, since purpose may already be present beyond the reach of tired understanding. The questions resting near you are not becoming dangerous because your attention is fading, and the pieces of your life are not drifting apart when thought releases them. They remain inside a care that does not grow weary, like glass secured within strong lines that continue holding through every lightless hour. Outside the chapel, the village roofs gather a thin covering of dew, and the empty road receives the silver touch of the moon. No traveler needs to explain that road before walking upon it, just as no seed needs to describe the harvest before opening beneath the soil. The sleeping village participates in countless hidden movements, from water settling below the ground to bread slowly rising in a covered bowl. None of these movements asks to be supervised, and none becomes less real because the people nearby have entered sleep. The Lord who keeps company on an unrecognized road also keeps company in this unremarkable hour, without requiring recognition as the price of nearness. There is room within his plan for the mind that understands, the mind that wonders, and the mind that has finally become quiet. There is room for the unfinished piece, the delayed answer, and the day whose place in the larger design remains entirely unknown. Each can wait without fear inside the chapel of this night, where the lamp is small and the surrounding darkness remains gentle. When morning reaches the window, every color will return in its own place, but nothing needs to hurry toward that returning light. For now, the image is complete without being visible, the village is cared for without being awake, and your story is carried without being explained. The scriptures hold a longer story that says the same thing across many years. It is the story of a young man named Joseph, who could not have understood his own life while he was living it. Only at the very end did the shape of it become clear, and by then, what had looked like ruin had quietly become rescue. Joseph was one of many brothers, and he was loved more than the others, and this love made his brothers bitter. One day, far from home, their bitterness overflowed. They seized him. They sold him to strangers passing through with a caravan. The caravan bells rang softly in the heat. The road unrolled endlessly ahead, through country he had never imagined, past faces that did not know his name. He watched his homeland shrink behind him until the familiar hills were gone entirely, swallowed by distance, and there was nothing around him but strangers and sand and a future he could not begin to picture. And Joseph, still young, was carried away into a foreign land, far from his father, far from everything he knew, with no explanation for why his life had broken apart. The caravan had carried him for days across dry country, farther from home with every hour. He did not know these roads. He had never seen this land. The language spoken around him was strange in his ears, and the faces were unfamiliar, and the God of his father seemed suddenly very far away, on the other side of a desert he could not cross. Try to imagine his first night in that strange place. He did not know the language. He did not know the road home. He did not know why God had allowed this. Every reasonable thought would have told him that his life was over, that the plan, if there had ever been a plan, had failed completely. He could not see even one step ahead. He could only lie down in the dark and wait for a morning he did not understand. And his life did not become simple after that. For years it grew harder. He was falsely accused. He was thrown into prison for something he had not done. He waited there a long time, forgotten by the people he had helped, with nothing to hold on to but a trust that must have felt, on many nights, like trusting an empty sky. The plan, if it existed, was buried so deep beneath his suffering that no one could have found it. Year folded into year. The prison walls did not change. The small window let in the same square of light each morning and took it away each night. And Joseph, who had once been his father's beloved, learned the long, slow patience of a man whose life is entirely out of his own hands, held in a plan he could neither see nor hurry. But something was working in the dark that Joseph could not see. Slowly, in ways he never could have arranged, he was lifted. He was brought before the ruler of that whole land. He was given wisdom to prepare the country for a famine that was coming. And when the famine came, and it was terrible, Joseph was the one who held the storehouses of grain that kept a whole people alive. And then, one day, his brothers came. They came from far away, hungry, not recognizing the powerful man before them as the boy they had sold. The years fell away in that moment. The powerful stranger they had bowed before was suddenly the brother they had wronged so long ago, and the recognition struck them silent with fear. They had imagined this man dead, or enslaved, or lost forever, and here he stood, alive, exalted, holding their very lives in his hands. And Joseph wept and made himself known to them, and they were afraid. But he did not repay them with harm. He said to them the words that gather up the whole long mystery of his life. "You meant it for evil," he said, "but God meant it for good." Think of how long he had waited to speak them. Years in a foreign land, years of accusation, years of a prison cell and a forgotten name. And in all those years, he could not have told you what they meant. The meaning was not available yet. It was still being made, in the dark, out of the very things that looked like ruin. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Hold those words gently tonight. Every dark turn of Joseph's life, every night he could not understand, every year that seemed like waste, had been quietly woven into a rescue he could not have imagined. Look back with him for a moment from the far end of the story. From where he finally stood, everything looked different. The very brothers who had sold him were the reason he was in that land at all. The false accusation had placed him where he needed to be. The forgotten years in prison had prepared him, had shaped him, had made him ready for the work only he could do. What had seemed like a chain of disasters revealed itself at the last as a single unbroken thread. The pit, the slavery, the prison, the forgetting. None of it was outside the plan. All of it was the plan, working in a darkness he could not see into. Joseph could not have explained his life at any point along the way. He could only trust or refuse to trust without ever being shown the reason. For most of his life, the meaning was simply unavailable to him. He lived forward into the mystery, the way we all must, unable to read the chapter he was in. Only from the far end could the whole be seen, and this is how most lives are. We do not get the explanation as we go. We get it, if we get it at all, at the end, looking back, when the scattered pieces suddenly compose themselves into a shape we could never have guessed from the middle. The understanding came at the end, all at once, like light filling a room. And when it came, he saw that he had been held the whole time, carried through every dark year toward a good he could never have designed. This is the quiet mercy for anyone lying awake tonight, unable to understand the shape of their own life. You may be in the pit, you may be in the prison, you may be in one of the long forgotten years when nothing makes sense and the plan seems lost. But you are not outside the story. You are inside it, in a chapter you cannot yet read, held by a hand that is working in the dark you cannot see into. You do not have to understand it tonight. Joseph did not for years and years. The understanding is not required for the rescue to be real. What was meant for harm can be quietly turned toward good, in ways you will perhaps only see at the very end, looking back. Think of how much of Joseph's story happened while he was asleep, or waiting, or simply enduring, unable to move the plot forward by any effort of his own. The great turnings of his life came from outside him, arranged by a hand he could not see. His job was never to engineer the rescue. His job was only to keep walking, keep trusting, keep being the kind of man the rescue could work through. The design was not his to draw. And that is a strange comfort for the striving heart. You are not the author of your own deliverance. You do not have to figure out the plot, or force the turning, or arrange the good ending by the strength of your own understanding. There is an author, and you are inside the story, and the story is going somewhere good, whether or not you can see the next page. For now, you may simply rest inside the unfinished story. There is grace in the not seeing. There is grace in the long years that make no sense while you live them. Joseph's grace was hidden in his hardest days, and it did not stop being grace because he could not feel it. It was working faithfully in the dark exactly where he could not look, and so it is with you. You are held. The plan is moving, even here, even in the dark. Grace is at work in the years you cannot yet explain. There is another story, older still, about a man named Job who lost nearly everything and who wanted, more than anything, an explanation. Tonight, we will not linger on his losses. We will go instead to the end of his long searching, to the moment when the answer finally came and turned out to be something other than an answer. Job had suffered greatly, and he did not know why. He was a good man, and his goodness had not spared him. And through all his suffering, he asked the one question that the suffering heart always asks: why? Why this? Why me? He wanted God to come down and explain, to lay out the reasons in an order he could follow, to make the mystery make sense. He asked for a long time. The heavens stayed silent for a long time. The silence had been long. Job had cried out into it again and again, and it had not answered, and he had begun to wonder whether the heavens were empty. His friends had offered their explanations, their tidy reasons, and every reason had fallen short, had missed the depth of the mystery, had left him more alone than before. And then at last God answered him. But God did not answer the question Job had asked. God did not give him a list of reasons. God did not explain the suffering. Instead, God spoke to Job out of a great wind, and what God offered was not an argument, but a vision of the world, a vision of its vastness and its wonder and its wild, uncontrollable beauty. Where were you? God asked him gently, when the foundations of the earth were laid. Can you count the clouds? Do you know when the wild goats give birth in the high places? Have you walked in the depths of the sea, or watched the morning stars sing together at the dawn of the world? Consider the mercy of it. Job had asked a small and aching question, and instead of a small answer, he was given the whole of the sky, the morning stars, the deep places of the sea, the wild creatures born in high lonely places no man ever sees. His narrow why was opened out into the enormous world, and in that opening, something in him could finally breathe. Question after question, not to shame Job, but to widen him, to lift his eyes from his small aching, why toward the enormous, tender, mysterious care that holds the whole of creation. And something happened in Job as he listened. His questions did not get answered. They got quieted, and there was, strangely, a comfort in the smallness. To be shown the sheer vastness of the world, the sea and the storm and the wild, untamable creatures, was to be reminded that he did not have to hold it all together himself. Something far greater held it, something far wiser ordered it. His small, aching mind was never meant to carry the weight of the whole. He saw that he was a small creature inside an immense and living mystery, held by a wisdom far larger than his understanding could contain. And this did not crush him. It comforted him. He had wanted an explanation, and instead he was given a glimpse of the one who holds all things, and it was enough. It was more than enough. Something had shifted in him that could never shift back. Before, God had been a rumor, a doctrine, a name he had learned and believed. Now God was a presence he had met, vast and near and beyond all his small imagining. The knowing of the ear had become the seeing of the heart, and the seeing changed everything, and asked for nothing in return but the silence of a man who has finally met the mystery. "I have heard of you," Job said at the end, "but now my eyes have seen you." He did not say, "Now I understand." He said, "Now I have seen." The seeing was deeper than understanding. He had come looking for reasons and found instead a presence, and in that presence his need for reasons quietly dissolved. He laid his questions down, not because they were answered, because they no longer weighed what they had weighed. This is a strange and gentle comfort, and it is exactly the comfort of this night. You may be asking why. You may have been asking for a long time, and the answer, when it comes, may not be the explanation you were reaching for. It may be something better and stranger. It may be the quiet sense of a presence, vast and tender, holding a world far larger than your understanding, and holding you within it. You do not need the explanation tonight. Job never got his, and Job found peace anyway. The mystery was not solved. It was simply entered and found to be safe. There is a strange relief in being small. The mind exhausts itself trying to be large enough to hold everything, to foresee every outcome, to understand the whole, and it cannot. It was never meant to. To be a small creature in a vast and tender care is not a diminishment. It is a homecoming. It is the deep ease of a child who does not have to run the household, who can simply belong in it and be fed and be kept. You are a small creature in an immense and living care, and you do not have to comprehend it to be held by it. The stars do not explain themselves to you, and still they shine. The sea keeps its depths, and still it holds the tides. And you are held, tonight, inside a wisdom you were never meant to contain. So let the why grow quiet now, the way it grew quiet in Job. Not answered, only held. You can lay the question down beside your bed and let it rest there, unanswered and unheavy, while you sleep. This is the grace hidden inside Job's whirlwind. Not an explanation, but a presence. Not a reason, but a nearness. The grace of being small inside a vast and tender care, held by a wisdom that does not need to justify itself to be trusted. Job found that grace, and it was better than any answer. The one who holds the wild goats and the morning stars holds you too. The mind resists this. It wants to hold the whole map, to see every reason, to sign off on the plan before consenting to it. But no creature was ever given that view. Not Joseph, not Job, not Abraham, not one of the great ones whose trust we still remember. They walked without the map. They trusted the one who carried it. And their not seeing was not weakness. It was the very substance of their faith. You do not have to understand the plan. You only have to rest inside it. We assume the mind must be satisfied before the heart can settle. But it is not always so. Sometimes the heart settles first, in the presence of a love it cannot explain, and the unsatisfied mind grows quiet simply from watching the heart at ease. The explanation never comes, and yet the calm does. The reason stays hidden, and yet the settledness arrives. Peace can come without explanation. Notice what Job did not receive. He did not receive a chart of his sufferings with a reason beside each one. He did not receive a promise that nothing hard would ever come again. He received something stranger and deeper. He received the sense of a presence so vast and so tender that the questions, without being answered, simply stopped demanding to be answered. That is often how the deepest comfort comes, not as an explanation that satisfies the mind, but as a nearness that quiets it. The mind wanted reasons. The heart needed only presence, and when the presence came, the heart was satisfied, and the mind, seeing the heart at ease, slowly stopped its asking. It came to Job, it can come to you. There was once a woman named Julian, who lived long ago in a small room beside a church, and who received, in a time of great illness, a series of quiet visions of the love of God. She was not a scholar or a preacher. She was a woman in a small room, writing plainly of what she had seen, in the ordinary language of her own century. And something in the plainness of it, the utter lack of pretension, has kept her words alive across all the centuries since, carried from troubled heart to troubled heart like a candle passed hand to hand down a long dark hall. She wrote them down in gentle words that have comforted troubled hearts ever since. And the heart of everything she saw can be held in a single phrase, small enough to carry into sleep. All shall be well, she wrote, all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. She did not write this because her life was easy. Death moved openly through the towns of her century. Whole families vanished in a season. No one could explain it, and no one was safe from it, and the fear of it colored everything. Into that darkness, her small, quiet visions came, not denying the darkness, not pretending the plague away, but speaking underneath it of something the darkness could not touch. She lived in a hard age, in a time of plague and fear, when death was near and the world seemed to be coming apart. She had every reason, by the measure of her days, to despair. And yet what she received in the depths of her own illness was not an explanation of the suffering. It was a promise underneath it, a promise that beneath all the trouble, held in the love of God, all was somehow, finally, well. She had been very ill, near to death, and it was out of that nearness that the visions came. Not visions of terror, as one might expect from a dying woman in a dying age. Visions of tenderness, visions of a love so deep and so sure that it changed the whole meaning of the suffering around her. She saw once, in her visions, a small thing, round like a little hazelnut, resting in the palm of a hand, and she wondered what it could be, and she understood that it was everything. It was all that is made. She turned the little round thing over in her mind for a long time, so small, so easily crushed, and yet it endured, and she understood that its enduring was not its own doing. It endured because it was cherished. The love that made it also kept it, moment by moment, in being. Nothing sustained it but that love, and nothing needed to. The whole of creation, small as a hazelnut, resting in the palm of a love that would not let it fall. It was so small and so fragile that she wondered how it could last at all. She looked at that small round thing for a long time in her vision, so fragile, so easily lost, and she marveled that it did not simply crumble away into nothing. And the answer came to her quietly. It lasts because it is loved. It continues because a love holds it in being. Nothing keeps it safe but the loving, and the loving is enough to keep it forever. and she understood that it lasted and would always last because God loved it. Hold that image as you lie in the dark. Everything that is, the whole vast world with all its trouble and all its beauty, is small as a hazelnut in the palm of a hand that loves it. It does not fall. It cannot fall. It is held gently, completely, by a love that made it and will not let it go. And you are within that held world, small and safe, resting in the same palm that holds the stars. Julian did not claim to understand how all would be well. She saw plainly that much was wrong, that suffering was real, that the world was broken in ways she could not fix or explain. She held the mystery and the promise together without resolving them. She lived out the rest of her quiet life inside that trust. In a small room, in a hard century, with death never far from any door, she carried a serenity that made no sense by the world's arithmetic. Her peace was not built on good circumstances. It was built on a love she had glimpsed underneath all circumstances, and that love did not waver when the world grew dark, because it had never depended on the world being bright. It shall be well, she trusted, not because she could see how, but because she had seen the love beneath it, and the love was enough. This is a trust that does not require understanding. It does not wait for the trouble to make sense. It simply rests in the deeper truth that underneath everything, holding everything, there is a love that will bring all things, at the last, to well. You do not have to see how. Julian could not see how. She only saw the love, and the love was enough to rest in. So let her words be your blanket tonight. All shall be well. Not all is well now, perhaps. Not all is understood, but all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, held in the palm of a love that does not drop what it holds. This is grace as Julian saw it. Not a grace that removes all trouble, but a grace that holds the troubled world in a hand that will not drop it. The hazelnut does not fall. The small, fragile thing is kept, and the keeping is grace, steady beneath everything, deeper than every wrong. You are the small, round thing in the gentle hand. You are kept, you are loved, you will not fall. There is something in Julian's little hazelnut that the anxious mind badly needs. It is the picture of a whole world, with all its terror and trouble, made small and safe in a hand that loves it. Not a world without trouble. A world whose trouble is enclosed, finally, inside a larger keeping. The wrongness is real, and the wrongness is not the deepest thing. Underneath it, cradling it, is a love that will bring all things home. You do not have to resolve the tension tonight between what is wrong and what is promised. Julian never resolved it either. She simply carried both, the brokenness she could see and the wellness she was promised, and let them lie together in a hand larger than the contradiction. What is wrong, and all shall be well. Both are true, and the second is truer. And that is enough to sleep on. Rest now, all shall be well. Long before Julian, there was a man named Abraham who was asked to do the hardest thing of all. He was asked to go, without being told where he was going. There is a quiet heroism in that simple sentence, not the heroism of battle or of great visible deeds. The quieter heroism of a man who packs his household and turns toward a horizon with no name because he has been asked to, and because he trusts the one who asked, and he went. He set out into an unknown country, following a promise he could not verify, walking a road whose end he could not see, and his walking became, for all who came after, a picture of what it means to trust a plan you cannot understand. He was not young when the call came. He knew the sound of his own well drawing water. He knew which fields flooded in the spring and which stayed dry. He knew the neighbors by name and the paths by heart and the particular quality of the evening light over his own land. It was the whole world to him, small and complete and understood. He had a settled life, a known place, a home with familiar walls and familiar fields. And into that settled life came a voice, asking him to leave it all, to go to a land he had never seen, to become part of a promise so large he could not have imagined its unfolding. He was not shown a map. He was not given the destination. He was only asked to go, and to trust that the way would open as he walked. And here is the quiet wonder of it. He went out, the old account says, not knowing where he was going, not knowing, that is the heart of it. He did not wait until the road was clear. He did not demand to see the end before he took the first step. The stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had hung over his old settled home, and yet everything beneath them was strange now, unmarked, unknown. There must have been mornings when the doubt was heavy, when the tents were struck and the road stretched empty ahead, and every sensible voice asked where he thought he was going, and he had no answer for those voices except that he had been called, and that the calling was enough to walk on one more day into the unnamed country. He simply trusted the one who called him, and he set out into the unknown, and he let the way reveal itself, one day at a time. He had spent his whole long life in one place. He knew its wells and its pastures, its seasons and its neighbors. And now, in his old age, when most men look for rest, he was folding his tents and turning his face toward a horizon that held no name he knew, following nothing but a voice and a promise. Imagine those first nights on the road, the familiar walls gone, the known fields behind him, around him only the open country and the wide unknowable dark, and ahead of him a destination he could not name. Every practical voice would have asked, "Where are you going?" And he would have had no answer except that he was going where he was led, and that the leading was enough. This is a very great trust and a very quiet one. It does not need to see the whole road. It only needs to take the next step, and then to rest, and then to take the next. Abraham did not carry the whole journey at once. No one can. No one is ever asked to carry the whole road at once. That is a weight no back was built for. The whole journey, all its turns and trials and unknown miles, would crush anyone who tried to lift it in a single day. But no one has to. The road is walked one day at a time, and each day carries only its own portion, and the portion is always somehow exactly bearable. He carried only the day he was in, and he trusted the rest to the one who had called him, and he lay down each night inside a plan he could not see the shape of. Perhaps you are on such a road now. Perhaps you cannot see where your own life is going. The familiar things have fallen away, or the path ahead has gone dark, and you do not know the destination. And every practical voice inside you is asking for a map you do not have. This is hard. It is one of the hardest things a heart can carry, this walking without knowing. But you do not have to know where you are going to be safely led. Abraham did not know, and he was led faithfully all his days. The not knowing did not mean he was lost. It meant he was trusting, and the road opened beneath his feet, one step at a time, exactly as far as he needed to see and no farther, held the whole way by the one who had called him out. You can walk that way too. You do not have to see the end of your road tonight. You do not have to understand where your life is going. You only have to trust the one who leads, and take the step in front of you, and then lie down and rest, and let tomorrow's road be tomorrow's. Think of how a lamp lights only the next few steps of a night road. It does not show you the whole way to your destination. It shows you enough to take one step, and then, when you have taken it, it shows you the next. And so you walk the whole dark road, never seeing more than a little way ahead, and yet arriving, in the end, exactly where you were going. The light was always sufficient, though it was never abundant. Consider how strange it would be to refuse to walk until the whole road was visible. No one lives that way. No one could. The road of an entire life is never shown all at once. It unfolds turn by turn, and each turn shows only the next. And somehow, walking that way, into a future we cannot see, we arrive. We have always arrived. The unseen road has always, in the end, been enough. So the not seeing is not a failure of faith. It is the very condition of the journey. Abraham was not asked to see the destination. He was asked to trust the one who did. And that is all any of us are asked, not to see the whole road, only to trust the one who holds the map and to take the next step in the light we are given. The way will open as you walk it. It always has. There is grace on the unknown road. Abraham could not see it, but it went before him, opening the way one step at a time, providing exactly what each day required and no more. The grace did not wait until he understood the destination. It walked with him into the not knowing, and it was enough. You are being led, even in the dark, even without a map. You are held on the road. You can rest and let the journey be unknown, and trust that you are going, all the while, exactly where you are meant to go. The Gospels hold a smaller scene that carries this same grace. It is the scene of a boat on a lake at night, and a storm that rose, and a man asleep in the middle of it, at peace while everyone around him was afraid. Jesus had been teaching all day, and when evening came, he got into a boat with his friends to cross the water. And being tired, he lay down in the back of the boat, put his head on a cushion, and fell asleep. The sky had gone black. The stars were swallowed. The only light was the pale foam on the tops of the waves as they rose out of the darkness and fell against the hull. The men shouted to be heard over the wind. The sail strained and cracked, and through all of it, the boat pitched and rolled on water that seemed to have no bottom and no mercy. And while he slept, the wind rose, and the waves rose with it, and the little boat was tossed on the dark water. The lake had been calm when they set out, the water smooth in the last of the evening light. But these were mountain waters, and the wind came down from the heights without warning, and what had been a gentle crossing became, in a matter of minutes, a struggle in the dark against a rising sea. His friends did not understand how he could sleep. They were experienced men, many of them, who knew these waters, and even they were afraid. They watched the waves climbing the sides of the boat. They felt the water gathering cold around their feet, and in the middle of all of it, the one they loved most was asleep, resting through the very storm that filled them with dread. They did not understand his peace. They could not see what he seemed to know in his sleeping body, that the boat was held, that the water was not in charge, that the night, however wild, was safe. Fear narrows the eyes. It fixes them on the threat and blinds them to everything else. The men in the boat could see nothing but the rising water, the failing sail, the black sky pressing down. The one deep certainty in the vessel, the sleeping presence that was their real safety, went entirely unseen because fear had filled their sight with the storm. They only saw the storm, and so they woke him, unable to bear his calm, and asked him how he could sleep while they were perishing. But hold the picture before the waking. Hold the image of the sleeping man in the stern, his face soft, his breathing slow, entirely at peace on the heaving water. It would be one thing to sleep through danger you cannot perceive, but he perceived it, or he would have, had he been watching. His sleep was not ignorance. It was trust so complete that the storm could not reach into it. He knew what the water could do, and he slept anyway, because he knew something deeper about who held the water. He was not asleep because he failed to notice the storm. He was asleep because he understood something deeper than the storm. There is a whole world in that sleeping face, the soft breath, the loose hands, the complete absence of the fear that gripped everyone else in the boat. He was not braver than they were. He simply knew something they had forgotten, that the water they feared was held in a hand, and that the hand would not let the boat go down. He trusted the one who holds the sea, and so he could rest in the middle of what terrified everyone else. This is a grace the anxious heart can hardly believe, that peace does not have to wait for the storm to end, that you can rest in the middle of the trouble, before it is resolved, before you understand it, before the waters go still. The disciples believed peace came only after the calm. Jesus showed them peace that came before it, peace that slept through the wind, peace rooted not in circumstances but in trust. You do not have to understand your storm tonight to rest inside it. You do not have to wait until the waters are smooth. There is a grace that lets you lie down in the middle of the unresolved, on the heaving dark water, and sleep, because the boat is held, and the sea is not in charge, and the one who holds the deep is with you in the vessel. So let the storm be a storm tonight, and rest anyway. You are in the boat with the one who is not afraid of the water. You do not have to still the sea before you close your eyes. You only have to trust that you are held on it, carried through the wild dark toward a morning you cannot yet see. For it is grace that holds the boat, not the strength of the sailors, not the calming of the wind. Grace, present in the vessel, asleep on the cushion, steady while the storm rages. The same grace is in your boat tonight, carrying you across the dark water toward a shore you cannot see. The waves will not sink what grace is carrying. It is worth noticing that he did not calm the storm before he slept. He slept first, and the calming came later, and even the calming was almost an afterthought, done because the others could not bear their own fear. The sleeping came before the stilling. The trust came before the resolution. He did not wait for safe conditions to be at ease. He carried the ease into the unsafe conditions, and it did not waver there. This is the thing the frightened heart can hardly believe, that ease is possible before the trouble ends. We keep telling ourselves we will relax once the storm passes, once the problem resolves, once we finally understand. But the sleeping man in the boat offers another way entirely. Sleep now, he seems to say, in the middle of it, because the middle is just as safe as the end. You can sleep, as he slept, at peace in the middle of the storm. There is a scene in the Gospels where the question of understanding is asked directly and gently set aside. It is the scene of a man who had been blind from birth, and who was given his sight, and who could not explain any of it, and did not need to. The man had never seen. From his first day, he had lived in darkness, knowing the world only by sound and touch, and the warmth of the sun on his face. And one day Jesus came near, and made a little clay, and touched his eyes, and told him to go and wash. And the man went and washed, and came back seeing. He had known his mother only by her voice, and the touch of her hands, and now he saw her face. He had felt the sun for a lifetime, and now he saw the sky it came from. Everything he had known by sound and touch now had a shape and a color, arriving all together, overwhelming and glorious. A whole visible world breaking open before eyes that had never once used their gift. Light and color and faces all at once for the very first time. He had gone out that morning, as he had gone out every morning of his life, into a world of darkness and sound, and he came home able to see the faces of the people who had passed him by for years, the color of the sky, the shape of his own hands. It was the largest thing that had ever happened to anyone, and he could not explain a moment of it. And then the questions began. People wanted explanations. How did this happen? Who did it? How can this be? They asked him again and again, turning it over, unable to fit it into what they understood. And the man who had received the miracle in his own body could not explain it to them. He did not know how it worked. He did not know the theology of it. He only knew what had happened to him. He would not be argued out of it. They pressed him from every side. They threatened. They scoffed. They demanded he account for the impossible thing that had happened. And he simply returned, each time, to the one solid stone he could stand on. He did not have their answers. He had something better. He had the plain, undeniable fact of a life transformed. "One thing I know," he said simply. "I was blind, and now I see." That was all he had. Not an explanation, not a theory, just the plain fact of the gift he had received. He could not tell them how. He could not answer their harder questions. He could only rest in the simple truth of what grace had done, and let the how remain a mystery he was not required to solve. There is such freedom in his answer. The people around him were tangled in their need to understand, to categorize, to make it fit, and he stood among them in the quiet possession of something realer than understanding. He could see. He did not know how, and it did not matter that he did not know. The people kept pressing him, turning his miracle over and over, trying to make it fit their categories, and the more they pressed, the simpler his answer became. He stopped trying to satisfy their questions. He returned, again and again, to the one thing he actually possessed, which was not an explanation at all, but a fact he carried in his own opened eyes. The gift was real, whether or not he could explain it. This is a gentle permission for tonight. You do not have to explain the grace you have been given. You do not have to understand how the good things in your life arrived, or how the mercies came, or how you have been carried this far. You may simply hold the plain fact of them. I was held. I am being held. The how can remain a mystery, and the mystery takes nothing from the gift. So set down, tonight, the need to understand it all. Like the man given sight, you can rest in what you know without knowing how. If you look back over the length of your own life, you will find that you were carried through the hardest parts by strength that did not feel like your own. The night you thought you could not survive and did. The loss you thought would end you and did not. Something carried you. Something bore you up when your own strength failed. You did not manufacture that. It was given quietly from a source you may never have named. You have been carried. You are being carried still. Consider how little of your own life you actually engineered. The people who shaped you, placed in your path before you could choose them. The turns that led you here, most of them unplanned. The mercies that arrived exactly when they were needed, that you could not have arranged if you had tried. So much of a life is simply given, quietly, from a source we never fully see. Grace has done and is doing more than you can trace or explain, and none of it requires your comprehension to be true. You can simply receive it in the dark with grateful and untroubled trust. I was blind, and now I see. Let that be the shape of your resting, not a full understanding, just the quiet, sufficient knowledge that grace has touched your life and is touching it still in ways you were never asked to explain. The blind man could not trace his grace either. He only knew it had touched him, and that is often all grace lets us know. Not the mechanism, not the reasons, only the plain, warm fact that we have been touched and changed and carried by a mercy we will never fully understand. You are held by a mercy you cannot fully trace, and you do not need to trace it. You only need to rest in it. The man born blind never did win his argument with the crowd. They remained tangled in their questions, and he remained in his simple certainty, and the two never met. But he did not need them to agree with him. His sight did not depend on their understanding it. The gift was already his, already working in his opened eyes, whether or not anyone around him could explain it or approve of it. And there is a freedom in that no argument can give, to hold something so real that it needs no defense, to possess a gift so plain that the failure of others to understand it takes nothing from it at all. He simply had his sight, and you simply have your life, carried this far by mercies you will never fully trace, real whether or not you can explain a single one of them. Sleep now in the simple peace of the gift received. There is a story told among the desert fathers, the old teachers who went into the wilderness long ago to find God in the silence. A young monk came to one of them, troubled and restless, full of questions he could not answer. He had lain awake many nights turning his questions over, and they only multiplied in the dark, one opening onto the next, until his mind was a crowded room with no quiet corner in it. He wanted to understand everything. He wanted every mystery of the spiritual life laid out clearly before he could feel at peace. He came to an old teacher named Moses, who had lived many years in the quiet and had grown deep and still. He had carried these questions across the desert like a heavy load, and now he set them all down at once before the old teacher, one tumbling after another, each one urgent, each one demanding a resolution before he could feel any ease. His whole body leaned forward with the wanting of it, the wanting to know, to master, to finally comprehend. And the young man poured out his questions. What does this mean? Why does God do that? How can I understand this teaching, and that one, and the one after? He believed that peace waited on the far side of understanding, that only when he had grasped it all could he finally rest. The desert was very quiet around them. The heat of the day had passed, and the long shadows were reaching across the sand, and the young man's questions hung in the still air, urgent and many. The old teacher did not rush to meet them. He had learned, over many years, that most questions are not answered. They are outlived. The old man listened, and then he gave an answer that was not an answer to any of the questions. The young man must have blinked at the smallness of it. He had come so far. He had asked such large questions, and the answer was to go back to the plainest place he knew and simply stay there. But the old man had lived long enough to know that the largest things are learned in the smallest rooms by those willing to stop moving long enough to be taught. Go, he said, and sit in your cell, and your cell will teach you everything. That was all. Not an explanation of the mysteries, not a map of the whole spiritual life. Just this. Return to your small quiet room, sit down in it, stay, and let the stillness itself be your teacher. The young man had wanted knowledge, and the old man gave him stillness instead. He had wanted to understand, and the old man taught him to abide. Because the desert fathers knew a secret the restless heart is slow to learn. That understanding does not come first, and peace second. Often it is the other way. This is the reversal the desert taught. The world says, understand, and then you may be at peace. The old fathers said, be at peace, and then perhaps you will understand. And even if the understanding never fully comes, the peace remains, which was the deeper thing you were seeking all along, hidden underneath your questions. First you become still, first you rest, and in the resting, slowly, without effort, the understanding you were chasing begins to arrive on its own. Picture the young monk's cell, a small plain room, a mat, a lamp burning low, thick walls holding the silence in. Nothing to figure out there, nothing to master, only the quiet and the self and the slow presence of God that fills a room when a restless mind finally stops its churning and consents to simply be there. This is a mercy for anyone whose mind will not stop working at night. So much of our sleeplessness is the mind refusing to sit in its cell. It keeps getting up, keeps searching, keeps insisting that it must understand before it can rest. And the old teacher gently reverses it. Sit down, he says, stay. Stop chasing the understanding. The stillness will teach you what the searching never could. You do not have to solve anything tonight to be at peace. You do not have to understand your life before you are allowed to rest in it. Your cell is your bed, your quiet, the small, still place where you already are. Sit down in it. Stay. Let the restlessness settle like dust in still air. There is a kind of knowing that only comes to the quiet. It cannot be seized, it cannot be forced. It arrives the way dawn arrives, without effort, to those who have stopped straining in the dark and simply waited. The restless mind chases it and never catches it. The still mind stops chasing and finds that it was near all along, waiting only for the silence in which it could be heard. And trust that what you need to understand will come in its own time to a mind that has finally grown quiet enough to receive it. Your cell will teach you everything, the old man said. Not your searching, not your striving, your stillness. So let this night be a cell for you, a small quiet room where nothing must be solved and nothing must be grasped. Sit down in it, rest in it, and let the deep peace of simply being still do the gentle teaching that no amount of anxious understanding ever could. You can stop searching now. You can stay. There is grace in the cell. There is grace in the small, quiet room where nothing is solved. It looked like nothing, that small, bare cell. A mat, a wall, a low lamp, and silence. To the restless young man, it must have seemed like being given nothing at all in answer to everything he asked. But the emptiness was full. The silence was working. In that plain, quiet room, with nothing to master and nowhere to go, the deep, slow work of the soul could finally begin. The stillness the old teacher prescribed was not empty. It was full of a quiet grace that does its work precisely when the mind stops working. Sit still, and the grace will find you there. The Desert Fathers were not anti-intellectual men. They were not against understanding. They simply knew the right order of things, that the mind must first be quieted before it can see clearly, and that a frantic search for answers usually pushes the answers further away. Sit still, they said. Stop grasping, and you will find that what you were reaching for comes to you, quietly, once you have stopped chasing it. We live in the opposite belief. We think if we just work harder at understanding, if we just turn the problem over enough times, we will finally crack it open and then, at last, be at ease. But the mind that will not stop rarely finds what it seeks. It is the mind that consents to be still, that lays the question down and simply waits, to which the quiet answers eventually come. You are held in the stillness, and the stillness is enough. There is a story sometimes told about an old clockmaker and his young apprentice. The clockmaker had spent his whole life among gears and springs, and his small shop was full of the soft sound of many clocks, each keeping time in its own quiet voice. And the apprentice had come to learn the craft, eager and quick and full of questions. One day the clockmaker set before the young man the inside of a great clock, opened up, its workings exposed. The whole thing ticked and whirred with a hidden life. Brass caught the lamplight and threw it back in small moving glints. Somewhere deep inside, an escapement clicked its steady rhythm, and around it the wheels turned at their different speeds, some so slowly they seemed frozen, some so fast they blurred. There were dozens of gears, some large, some tiny, and springs coiled tight, and small wheels turning wheels in ways the apprentice could not follow. "Watch," the old man said, and he set it going, and the apprentice watched and grew frustrated because he could not understand how all the pieces worked together to keep the time. "This one turns too slowly," the young man said, pointing to a great gear that barely seemed to move. "And this one spins so fast it does nothing at all. And these tiny wheels here, I cannot see what they are for. It makes no sense. How can this confusion of parts, some crawling, some racing, some seemingly pointless, ever come together to tell the hour truly?" He had made and mended clocks for 50 years. He had held in his hands the workings of 100 timepieces, and he had learned slowly to love the very intricacy that frustrated the young. He knew that the confusion the apprentice felt was only the confusion of seeing the parts without yet seeing the whole. The old clockmaker smiled. "You are looking at the pieces," he said, "and asking each one to make sense by itself. But no single gear tells the time. The slow one and the fast one and the tiny ones you cannot understand. They are all turning together, each doing its own hidden part." The apprentice leaned closer, watching the slow gear that barely moved and the fast one that spun to no visible purpose, and his frustration only grew. It was the frustration of a mind that wants each part to justify itself alone. But a clock is not made of independent parts. It is made of a single design, and no gear means anything by itself. You cannot see the whole design from one wheel. Only the maker, who set them all in their places, can see how the slow and the fast and the small all serve the one true time. And then he said the thing the apprentice remembered all his life: "Do not ask each gear to explain itself." The apprentice fell quiet, watching the wheels turn with new eyes. He had wanted each part to justify itself, and now he saw that no part had to. They justified each other. They served a whole that none of them could see, and the whole kept faith, second after second, hour after hour, indifferent to whether any single gear understood its place. Ask only whether the clock keeps time, and it does. It keeps perfect time. The parts you cannot understand are exactly the parts that make it work. Your not understanding them takes nothing from their faithfulness. They turn on, in their hidden order, whether or not you can follow them. This is a gentle picture of a life. The pieces of your days, some slow, some fast, some seemingly pointless, turning in an order you cannot follow. You look at one gear of your life, one long, slow year, one baffling turn of events, and you ask it to make sense by itself, and it will not. No single piece can show you the whole design. Only the maker, who set them all in their places, can see how the slow and the fast and the small all serve one good and hidden purpose. You do not have to understand each gear tonight. You do not have to trace how the pieces of your life fit together, or why the slow years crawl, or what the baffling parts are for. You may simply trust the maker, who sees the whole design and who has set each piece, even the ones you cannot understand, into its place in a plan that keeps true time. So let the gears turn tonight without your understanding them. The clock keeps time whether or not you can follow the wheels. Your life is held in an order larger than your seeing, moving faithfully toward a purpose the maker holds in full view. You do not have to comprehend the mechanism to trust the timekeeper. There is a peculiar arrogance, if we are honest, in demanding that every part of our lives explain itself to us before we will trust the whole. It is like the apprentice refusing to believe the clock works until he personally understands every gear. The clock does not need his understanding. It needs only its maker. And a life does not need our comprehension of every turn. It needs only the one who set the turns in motion. so we can let go of the exhausting project of understanding everything. We were never the timekeeper. We were never meant to hold the whole design in our small minds. That weight belongs to someone else, someone who carries it easily, someone in whose hands the slow years and the strange turns are all quietly serving a time we cannot yet read. You can rest and let the hidden wheels turn and trust that all of it, the slow and the fast and the strange, is keeping perfect time in hands wiser than yours. The clockmaker's grace was in the hidden wheels, and the grace of your life is in its hidden turnings, the slow gears and the strange ones, all of them moving in an order the Maker holds in full view. Stand back far enough and the confusion resolves. The gear that seemed too slow is the very one that measures the hours. The one that spun uselessly fast is driving the whole mechanism from within. Each piece that made no sense alone turns out to be essential to the whole. It was never confusion. It was only a design too large to read from a single wheel. You cannot see the design, but grace is in it, keeping perfect time, whether or not you can follow the wheels. Grace is in the gears you cannot see. Peace is in the trusting. You are held in the whole design. There is a story Jesus told about a father and a son who went away. And tonight we will tell it from the father's side, from the long, quiet years of waiting, and from the road where he watched, and from the evening the son finally came home. The house was full and warm, a good house, wanting for nothing, and still the younger son felt the walls of it pressing in on him, felt the pull of a horizon he could not name. A man had 2 sons, and the younger one grew restless. He wanted his share of everything now, wanted to leave, wanted a life his father could not understand and could not stop. And the father, who could have refused, did not refuse. It cost him something we can only guess at, to open his hand and let the boy go. He knew the road led nowhere good. He knew what waited for a young man with money and no wisdom, and still he did not clutch or forbid or chain the boy to the house. Love does not imprison what it loves. He gave the son what he asked for, and he watched him walk away down the road, growing smaller, until the distance swallowed him, and the father was left with an empty place at his table and a question he could not answer. We are not told what those years were like for the father, but we can imagine. Every evening, perhaps, he walked out to the edge of his land and looked down the road the son had taken. Every evening, the road was empty. He did not know where the boy was. He did not know if he was well, or hungry, or alive. He only knew that the son was gone, and that he could not go and fetch him, and that all he could do was wait and watch the road and keep the boy's place ready. That is a hard kind of love, the love that cannot fix or control or bring home by force, the love that can only wait and hope and leave the door unlocked. Night after night, the father lay down not knowing and rose not knowing and walked out again to the empty road, and he did not understand why it had to be this way, why the son had to go, why the waiting had to be so long. He only kept loving in the dark without the answers. And then one evening there was a figure on the road, far off, small, ragged, and stumbling. The father had looked down that road 1,000 times and seen nothing. But this time, while the son was still a long way off, the father saw him, and something broke open in him. He did not wait for the boy to reach the house. He did not stand on his dignity and make the son come to him. He ran. His robes caught the wind. His old legs, unused to running, carried him faster than they had in years. The servants must have stared. The dignity of a landowner meant nothing to him now. There was only the small, ragged figure on the road, and the distance between them closing with every desperate stride. An old man running down the road toward the child he had waited for through all the unanswered years. He threw his arms around the boy before a single word of explanation could be spoken. The son had a speech ready, a careful confession, but the father hardly seemed to hear it. He was too busy holding him. He called for the best robe, for a ring, for a feast. "This son of mine was lost," he said, "and is found." Not a word of reproach, not a demand to understand where the boy had been or why. Only the wide, wordless welcome of a love that had never stopped waiting. There is so much rest in this story if we let ourselves receive it. The father did not need the son to explain the lost years. He did not require an accounting before the embrace. The understanding, whatever there was of it, could come later or never. What came first, what came running down the road, was the welcome, the holding, the joy of the one who was home at last. And perhaps you are somewhere on that road tonight. Perhaps you feel far off and ragged and unsure of your welcome. Perhaps you have been carrying a careful speech, an explanation of where you have been and why. You can set the speech down. The one who waits for you is not standing on the porch with folded arms, demanding that you make sense of everything first. He is already running toward you before you have said a word to gather you in. You do not have to understand your own wandering before you are welcomed home. You do not have to explain the lost years, or justify the long road, or make an accounting of anything at all. The welcome comes first. The holding comes first. And whatever understanding is needed can wait until morning, or wait forever, held gently inside a love that ran down the road to meet you while you were still a long way off. The elder son, in the fuller telling, could not understand the father's joy. He had stayed. He had worked. He had done everything right, and here was the wasteful younger brother getting a feast, and the father's answer to him is as tender as the running embrace. "Everything I have is yours," he said. "You did not have to earn my love by understanding it. It was always yours." That is the hardest thing for the dutiful heart to hear. That love is not the wage of understanding, that you cannot fall far enough to be beyond the running welcome, and you cannot work hard enough to earn what was always freely given. The younger son could not explain his wandering. The elder son could not understand the mercy. And the father loved them both, past all their understanding, and set a place for each of them at the same table. You are welcomed. You are home. You can rest. There is one more image before the night grows fully quiet, and it is the simplest of them all. Not a person, not a journey, just a small flame keeping its patient watch in the dark. Consider, last of all, a single small lamp burning through the night in an empty church. It explains nothing. It answers no questions. It only burns quietly, faithfully, in the dark, and in its burning there is a whole gospel of trust. In many old churches there hangs a small lamp near the altar, and it is never allowed to go out. Through the day it burns while the people come and go. Through the evening it burns as the last of them leave, and through the long night, when the church is locked and empty and dark, when there is no one at all to see it, the small lamp goes on burning, keeping its steady watch over the silence. No one watches it through the night. That is the wonder of it. Its faithfulness does not depend on being seen. It does not burn brighter when someone is there to admire it, or dimmer when the church stands empty. It simply burns all night, every night, in the deep dark when no eye is upon it, as constant at 3 a.m. as it is at noon. It asks for no witness. It performs for no one. It simply keeps its quiet light. And it does not understand why it burns, any more than the church understands, any more than the darkness understands. It is not the lamp's task to comprehend. It is only the lamp's task to burn. The meaning of its faithful little light is held somewhere far above its knowing, in the purpose of the ones who lit it and keep it filled. Its part is simply to shine through the night, whether or not anyone can say what it is for. There is such quiet in that image, a small light burning in an empty dark, asking nothing, explaining nothing, simply faithful. It does not lie awake wondering whether its burning matters. It does not need to see the whole church, or understand the whole night, or justify its small flame against the great surrounding dark. It only does the one small thing it was made to do, and lets the meaning of it rest in hands higher than its own. You can be like that small lamp tonight. You do not have to understand the whole of the dark around you. You do not have to see what your faithfulness is for, or justify your small light against the vast, unknowing night. You only have to burn quietly where you are placed, doing the small next thing, and let the larger meaning rest in the hands of the one who lit you and keeps you, and knows exactly what your light is for. And even that small burning. Tonight, you may set down. The lamp does not tend itself. Someone fills it. Someone keeps it. And through the deepest hours, while you sleep, a faithfulness greater than yours keeps its watch over the dark, burning steadily in the empty church of the night, needing nothing from you, holding everything you cannot hold. You may close your eyes. The lamp is lit. The night is kept. There is a whole theology in that small, unwatched flame. It says that faithfulness does not require an audience. It says that the most important things go on in the dark, unseen, unapplauded, sustained by a care that needs no witness. The lamp does not burn for admiration. It burns because it is kept burning by hands that tend it faithfully, whether or not anyone knows their names. And your life, too, is tended by such hands. The deep sustaining of you does not stop when no one is watching, when you have accomplished nothing visible, when you lie in the dark having done and understood nothing at all. You are kept then just as surely as in your brightest hour. The keeping does not depend on your performance. It only depends on the faithfulness of the one who keeps. And you are held in a light that never once goes out. 14 quiet stories have passed through this night, and every one of them said the same small thing in a different voice. The seed grows in the dark. The window waits for its hands. Joseph could not read his own years. Job was given a presence instead of an answer. Julian saw the whole world safe in a loving palm. Abraham walked without a map, and none of them, not one, had to understand the plan in order to be carried through it. That is the single truth to carry into sleep, if you carry anything at all. You do not have to understand. You never did. The understanding was never the toll you had to pay before you were allowed to lie down. It can stay unfinished, like the window, like the plan, like the road ahead, and you can lie down anyway, safe in the dark, carried by one who sees the whole design and asks nothing of your understanding. You do not need to remember everything you heard tonight. If one moment stayed with you, let that be enough. Perhaps it was a road at evening, a seed beneath the earth, or a small lamp burning in an empty chapel. And if nothing stayed, that is fine too. Some things settle into us without our knowing. The things you release tonight do not fall apart for being released. That is the quiet discovery at the heart of all these stories. The field grows unwatched. The child heals unwatched. The window waits unwatched. The lamp burns unwatched. Everywhere, the deepest work goes on precisely in the places we are not looking, tended by a faithfulness that does not need our supervision to remain faithful. They do not need to be watched. Grace can continue quietly beneath the surface. From the very first word tonight, this was where it was all going. Not toward understanding, not toward insight or resolution or a neatly tied conclusion, toward sleep, toward the simple laying down of a tired body and a busy mind into the quiet of the night. Everything spoken was only ever a path toward this one gentle destination, and if you have already arrived there, then the words have done their whole work. If you are still with us, thank you for staying. If you have already drifted off, thank you for that too. Nothing was missed. Rest was always the purpose. Wherever you are right now, you are welcome here, exactly as you are. You have carried enough questions through this day. You do not have to carry them into your sleep as well. Whatever remains unanswered can stay unanswered until morning or longer without any harm. The night does not require you to solve it. It asks only that you lie down inside it and let the unanswered things be, and trust that they are safe in the dark without your worrying over them. You do not need another answer tonight. You are held. There is nothing left for you to solve tonight. The questions can stay open. The plans can stay unfinished. The road ahead can stay unseen. None of it has to be resolved before you close your eyes, because none of it was ever yours to resolve alone. It has been carried all along by one who sees the whole design, and it will be carried still through the night while you sleep. You do not have to understand everything. You never did. The understanding was never the price of your rest. You may lay it all down now, the solved and the unsolved alike, and let the night be simply night, and let yourself be simply carried. The unfinished plan may remain in peace. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here at Midnight Chapel.